Did you know that if you entered the USA without a visa and you marry a US citizen, there's still a path to permanent residency? However, there's an immigration punishment that says if you're here unlawfully for more than 1 year and then leave the USA, there's a 10-year immigration punishment. Well, what does the law says? The law says that to become a permanent resident, you need to pass into the United States through customs and be inspected. So if you enter without a visa, how do you do this? Well, there's this hardship waiver. It's actually called the provisional hardship waiver, where you can still become a permanent resident if you entered without a visa. You just first need to do the I-130 marriage petition, then the hardship waiver. There's also 3 steps at the National Visa Center, and then you have to wait for the interview. What is this process taking right now? I'm realistically expecting about 7 to 10 years. So we're going to look at the official website. Why does this process take 7 to 10 years? The answer, my friends, it's the processing time. So we're going to look up the processing time. So we go to the official website, uscis.gov. Make sure it's .gov and not .com or one of those artificial fake websites that try to take your money or scam you. And you go to the processing times here. So the first step is the marriage petition, the form I-130. So we're going to go down to the petition for alien relative, and it's a U.S. citizen filing for a spouse, and do the all service centers. We look at this processing time. It's 80% of cases are completed within 15 and a half months. So that's more than a year that realistically could take. And also, if you have a case in immigration court, that's going to add probably a year or 2 more of delay in getting the petition approved. After you get the petition approved, that's when you file the provisional hardship waiver, the application for a provisional unlawful presence waiver. And we click on the form category in all service centers, and we look at the processing time. The processing time for that, it says 80% of cases are completed within 42 and a half months. This is literally between 3 and 4 years to get a decision on the waiver. That's after that we already had to wait for the petition. Once this is approved, and you sometimes can start the National Visa Center process prior to approval, but it typically takes, right now, the National Visa Center, I'm estimating anywhere from 3 to 6 months. You do all of that online to get approval. And then once that's approved, they send the entire package to the consulate outside the country. And what this unlawful presence waiver and the petition do is it cancels that 10-year immigration punishment. So when you leave the country for the interview, you're already forgiven, and that 10-year immigration punishment is erased. And so what this means is you can wait for this entire process to be approved here in the United States. And yeah, for example, in Mexico, my clients, it's taken about 1 to 2 years after every step is completed, after this is approved, simply to get the interview. You would leave, go to Ciudad Juarez, there's going to be a medical exam, and then an interview. And at the interview, they're not really investigating whether it's a bona fide marriage or if there's sufficient hardship, because that's already approved. What they're doing is seeing if there's other immigration punishments that apply. For example, criminal arrest. Or let's say you have multiple entries into the United States. There might be a different immigration punishment that applies. Or, for example, if you've done something like registered to vote or voted, then that could actually prevent you from getting this approval. And then once you're approved at the interview, then they take your passport, and then it takes them a few days to process it. And if you stay, for example, in Ciudad Juarez, then you can pick it up a few days later, or you can actually go back to wherever you're from in Mexico or your home country, and then they can mail it to whatever area of the country you're in. You can go pick up your passport, and in your passport is actually a permanent resident visa. You take your passport with that permanent resident visa, enter back into the United States. When you come through customs, they're actually going to stamp your passport that you are a permanent resident. In that moment, you are officially 100% a permanent resident, even though you don't actually have your green card or permanent resident card. Once you get into the United States, you simply pay the $235 processing fee, and then immigration will mail you your permanent resident card. You are lawfully allowed to work, and you can get a Social Security card and a driver's license with your permanent resident stamp.